So what type of comic book bags do you prefer to use for your comic books? What's going on, everybody? Justin here, aka No Good Comics, and welcome back to the channel. In this episode, I am going over the question, what type of comic book bags do you use for your comic books? And I have a couple of comments that were left on the last video, my top 5 videos, or top 5 picks for New Comic Book Day. So I'm going to read off some of those comics. And again, appreciate everybody who partakes in these questions that I've been kind of asking week in and week out. If you want to have your comment highlighted, then make sure you keep an eye out for my top 5 picks video. That'll have a new question each week. Drop a comment, leave the answer or what your thought or your opinion is of whatever it is the question is of that week, and maybe I'll highlight it here on this next Wednesday video. So again, the question is, what type of comic book bags do you prefer to use for your comics? And so I'm going to start with my own answer, and the main type that I enjoy using most, especially for like keys or more expensive books, goes to these Mylar Mylight 2s, and I'm sure you might have heard of them or seen other people. I know a lot of people in the community use these Mylight 2s. They are also known as Mylar bags. Mylar is the actual type of plastic that they are. I'll take one of these out so you can kind of see. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it, but in case you're not, it is a bit of a more thick plastic than some of the other types of bags that are out there. And from what I understand, that this type of material is actually used for like government documents and things like that, and they are good enough to where they keep hold of good quality of paper long term. So I know, like I said, a lot of it's used for like government documents and things like that. And so yeah, I try to prioritize my more expensive books for this, and like my older books, especially like the Silver Age, Bronze Age, or just key appearances, things that might be a little bit more pricier than a typical issue. However, I will say that more recently, or not even recently, it's probably been like the past 2 years, where I've been putting a lot of my books into Mylar, just because of the I guess kind of what it does to the book, right? It just makes it look so much more shinier, so much more cleaner. It's like, takes out, if there are any like dings or scratches or anything on the corners or bent tips or anything like that. It kind of like what they call Mylar magic, kind of erases those damages, when you're looking at them, which is also why you should be careful. If you are buying books online, you should ask to see it outside of the bag, because you never know, that Mylar magic can kind of fool people. So, but yeah, I do like how books look in these Mylar bags. So that's why I've been putting just really any cover I like fall in love with, I'll put it in Mylar bag. However, I will say recently, like past maybe 2-3 months, I've been a little bit more cautious on what I'm putting into my Mylar bags, for the main purpose, or the main thought behind it is they're really expensive now. They've been really expensive probably for the past month, or past year. These like Mylights, I know there's a couple other versions of or other companies, Mylight 2s being one of the companies, but they've gone up in price big time, probably more than double. I mean, I remember paying $32 for these, and this was like before the pandemic. And even then, like, that was a lot of money, $32 for 50, standard, which is, can fit, Silver Age and stuff. But now they're going for like absurd numbers. I mean, like $70, $80, like almost triple the price of what they were going for at one point. So now I have to be a little bit more cautious on what I'm putting, what books I'm using for those. And otherwise, I'm using a different type of bag, which I'm going to get into in just a second. But I wanted to show, here's an example of kind of what the book can look like in a Mylar bag. I have fallen in love with this Superman cover recently that has just come out, so I put that in here. Another one that I have is this Sandman universe that I just got recently for the Tiny Onion Substack, the Substack club that they have. So yeah, nice Nick Robles cover here, but you can see, like, I mean, it just looks so nice in Mylar. So I mean, like I said, it's probably overkill. I know a lot of the more modern books probably don't need Mylar in the same sense as like some of the the older books do. But I am just like a stickler for that stuff now, and I just fell in love with like how books look in Mylar. So yes, like I said, for the most part, I'm putting most of them in Mylar. I am trying to get better at kind of separating the two because it is harder to get these now, as you know, a lot of the issues are happening with supply orders and things like that. You know, as is everything else in other industries as well, not just in comics. But so yeah, that's the main one I like to use. The Mylars, the Mylight twos, and then the other ones I use if I'm trying to save these is the poly bags here, which I've actually held up on the last video here briefly, but these are the BCWs comic book bags. These are technically regular slash silver. I like the Silver Age size a little more because I like to have, especially like putting my modern books away. I kind of like having that little, extra space around the edges. I know, I mean, it's all preference, right, at the end of the day. But I like to have a little bit of space on each corner. I don't like it to be too packed in there. So, but anyways, that's kind of where I stand with my choice of bag-in boards, either the BCW's silver, or I will go to the Mylar stuff, which is what I prefer. But I am running out of that rather quickly. So, but yeah, so if I'm curious still if whether you've answered this question in the last video or if you want to just answer it here. I'm curious kind of where you stand with the type of bags that you use and for what circumstance. Because like I said, like now I'm definitely putting Silver Age, I'm definitely putting Bronze Age, and especially the keys and like my whole X-Men run. I'd like to have all that in Mylar. I have like the Todd McFarlane Amazing Spider-Man, those 18 to 20 issues. I have all them in Mylar. So certain things that like are special to me, I definitely put in Mylar. And then some of this stuff here is all in Mylar. A lot of the some of these cool variants, store exclusives. 1 in 25s, 1 in 100s, things like that, I will throw into Mylar. So yeah, I'm curious kind of where you stand on that. But I want to jump into some of the answers that were left on my last video. So let's get into those right now. So the first one up goes to Lou Monoff. Lou says, I use Mylight 2 and halfbacks for mostly Silver Age and any books valued over a few hundred. Everything else I use Comic Pro line bags, which are very clear and give that Mylar look for a fraction of the price. Lou, thank you so much for the comment, and that's a great, so I've definitely heard of what you mentioned here, the Proline bags. I'll have to look more into them. I have had some friends mention them, that they use them as well. I hear that the quality is great, especially for the price that you're paying. And if that's the truth, that, they kind of give you that Mylar vibe, then maybe that's what I switch to so I can kind of save on not using all my, my Mylar books or Mylar bags on just every single book. But I like how you said it here too. You kind of have like this set range for yourself. The Silver Age stuff and the books that cost, a couple $100s or more, then you'll apply the Mylar bags to, and then otherwise you'll just use like the Pro lines, which are cheaper, and yet still have kind of a nice gloss to them. So yeah, I'm gonna have to look into those Pro line bags because I'm not. I've heard of them. I never really got a good glance at them myself, or like held it before or anything like that, or seen them in person that I know of, anyways. So I've just been using, like I said before, the poly BCW bags. But yeah, I will definitely check that out. And Lou, thank you so much for the comment. The next one up here is my man Flash by Night. Flash says, my go-to bag is usually just the regular BCW modern size bag. I haven't gotten into Mylars or Mylights just yet. Flash, I think, look, if that works for you, just sticking to the regular BCWs, then I think that's perfect. That works out great. I am curious, do you rebag your boards or rebag your books every so often because you're using poly, or do you just keep them as is long term, years and years? Because I have noticed that some of the poly bags that I've been using, over the course of time, like after like 2.5 years, some of them kind of get a wrinkle in them, or they kind of like shrivel up. It looks like it just doesn't look as nice or as appealing. And so, I've heard people kind of talking about that they have to rebag, their books every once in a while, and especially if you're using certain poly bags or cheaper than that. I don't even know. I'm sure there's other levels of bags, but yeah, I'm curious if if that's the case. If you do bag everything in the same bag and board, do you switch to anything else, or do you redo them? Do you redo them every so often? I've heard people rebag their books every 5 years, every 10 years. Some people do it even more often, every 2 years. Which can definitely be a lot of work, right? A lot of maintenance depending on how many books you have, at your place. So, just curious kind of to add that in there. But either way, yeah, like, if that works for you, man, then that is awesome. And, I'm sure, heck, you're saving a lot of money, right? The Mylar, like I said, is really expensive, and, I'm still having a hard time kind of holding back on what I use. So, but Flash, thank you, man, for the comment. Going into the next one here, I got my man Todd Michelson, and Todd says, Silver Age bag and boards fit everything I get. Modern size seems tight even on some modern thicker books. Yeah, Todd, I'm with you, man, and that's why I kind of like the Silver Age stuff. I I like to have it, have a little extra room, right? And, even if it does show like the white border, I kind of like that. It almost looks like a frame in a way. But like I said, I know some people prefer the modern, or I'm sure there's a couple different titles for what they call the modern, or standard. I think is another kind of phrase for it, but. Yeah, like you said, even for some of the modern books, like there are thicker books that are out there, you get some that are like the 25th year anniversary or the 100-year anniversary of like Batman, or some of these other books that are coming out, and they're one shots, or they're something like that where they're a lot thicker. So you might run into that problem. So with something like that, I would probably have a secondary type of bag or a secondary size just for those situations. Maybe something to consider. But yeah, either way, appreciate the comment there, Todd. Going into the last one that I have here for today, it is by Bottom Tier Collector. He says, okay, this comment is for your next video. I am in the process of cycling the poly bags and regular boards out of my collection, and I'm gradually putting every book into a Mylar 2 bag with a full backboard. I'm trying to be sensible about this conversation. I'm only throwing away bags and boards that should be thrown away. All of my poly end boards that that can be reused are used to bag my most current era books. Bottom Tier Collector, appreciate the insight here. And yeah, that's a great point. I mean, trying to kind of recycle the bag and boards that you're using, I think it's important if you can make that work. And if you're okay, yeah, like you said, you put them on your most current books, then I think it's a great idea. And I mean, you're definitely saving money in the long run, kind of reusing things as you can. And, and obviously, better for the environment, at least you're not throwing things away all the time. The other thing too that you mentioned is, you talk about your trying to switch everything to Mylar 2. I think that's awesome. And you mentioned the fullbacks, the fullback boards. So I am a fan of the fullback boards. However, I've kind of backed off of them just because they add up. They add up in size, right? Because they're thicker. So they fill a short box or even a long box. They fill them a lot quicker, and they add some weight, something to consider. But yeah, I mean, I totally get it. And for the ones that I do have, like. It's just nice to have, your book in a nice, solid fullback board along with Mylar. So, again, a lot of this depends on the size of your collection as well. So I'm curious, like how many books you're doing this for. That can, like I said, the Mylar 2s are definitely way more expensive right now. And who knows, like I'm hoping that this gets better, right? I'm hoping that the Mylar 2s are not so bad down the road, and so that, we can get back to buying them at $32 a bag or whatever. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, some interesting stuff there. I imagine that takes a long time, you trying to cycle through and fill everything up. But once you have them all, here's the other good thing I didn't mention before about Mylar book bags is that once you have them, you don't need to rebag. You really never have to. That one bag should be good long term. And I'm talking 10, 20 years. Like I said in the beginning, a lot of this stuff, from what I've heard of, is used for government documents. So, if they're using it and for long-term stuff, then you're probably good with your comic books. So, yeah, just something else to kind of consider. That's another plus, even though you're paying more money for the Mylar, it definitely is something that you're going to have to, pay more for. At least that they're going to last a lot longer than something like the poly bags, which I was mentioning before, where you have to kind of switch them out every 5 years or every 10 years. So, but Bottom Tier, I appreciate it as well. And I like that, you mentioned a little bit about the boards. I know Lou mentioned a little bit about the backing boards as well. Yeah, where he talks about the halfbacks. So, and I'm a bigger fan of the halfbacks right now. And I actually use halfback boards for my moderns because, well, that's a whole other conversation. I'll get into that on another video. But anyways, I'm gonna wrap this up here. Appreciate everybody who's taking the time to watch this. I am curious what kind of bags you use, so feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know what type of bags you use for your comic books. Again, appreciate everybody who left a comment here. And if you're looking forward to my next question of the week, that's going to come out tomorrow, Thursday, 12:30 Eastern, in my top 5 picks for new comic book day video. So check that out. Leave an answer for that next question, and maybe your comment will get featured here on one of my Wednesday videos. But otherwise, smash that like button on the way out. And until next time, I will talk to you later.